It started like any other quiet summer night. The air outside was thick with the warmth of late July, and the hum of cicadas buzzed just beyond the cracked window of my room. I remember lying on my bed, shirtless, a thin sheen of sweat clinging to my skin while the ceiling fan spun lazily overhead. My phone buzzed once. Then again. 3 times. I didn't check it right away. I was still thinking about what had happened the night before. About Theo. Theo, my best friend since middle school. The one person who knew me better than anyone else ever had. Or at least I thought he did. We'd spent nearly every summer together since we were 12, and this one was no different. Sleepovers, late-night horror movies, pizza crusts left in the box, and long, too honest talks under the stars. He never judged me, not when I came out last year, not when I told him things even my parents didn't know. So when he texted me last night, "Can you come over? I need help. Please. Just you." I didn't hesitate. I grabbed a hoodie and walked the 4 blocks to his place barefoot. Something about the urgency in his tone had unsettled me, even before I knocked on the back door. But tonight, things were quiet again. Unsettlingly quiet. The breeze through the window carried a strange scent, like burnt wood, or maybe old cologne. It pulled me back to the memory of Theo's house. His older brother, Jace, had been there. That part wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the way Jace looked at me when I walked in. Like he knew something I didn't. Like he was waiting for something. I finally picked up my phone and read Theo's messages. 1:27 a.m. Did you make it home okay? 1:45 a.m. Just don't tell anyone. About last night. 2:02 a.m. He wasn't supposed to be there. I read the last one 3 times, then set the phone down on my chest. Theo's house had always felt like a second home. But last night, the lights were dimmed, and the air smelled off, like something sour was hiding beneath the lemon-scented cleaner. Theo was pacing when I arrived. Nervous. Distracted. And then Jace appeared in the hallway, shirtless, tattoos glistening under the low light. He hadn't said anything. Just looked me over once. Slowly. Intentionally. Theo had asked me to help him find something. An old journal he'd hidden years ago, something about needing to destroy it before someone else did. But he never said who. And the longer I stayed, the more he kept glancing down the hallway, toward Jace's room. I didn't ask questions then. I should have. Tonight, lying here in the dark, I couldn't stop wondering what had actually happened. What Theo was so afraid of. What was really in that journal. And why, when I was leaving, Jace followed me out to the porch and whispered, "You didn't see anything tonight, right?" He smiled when he said it, but it wasn't the kind of smile you trust. It was the kind that presses down on your chest hours later and won't let you breathe right. Now I can't sleep. The shadows in my room feel heavier than they should. Every creak in the floorboards makes me flinch. And outside, I swear I just saw a figure at the edge of the streetlight. Watching. What if I wasn't supposed to leave that house? What if Theo didn't really want me to come at all? I spent the next day trying to forget the way Jace's voice had curled around me like smoke. But it stuck, every word, every glance, burning slow at the back of my mind. The sunlight the next morning filtered lazily through my curtains. It was the kind of golden haze that made everything look too peaceful, like the world had paused just long enough for you to believe nothing bad could happen. I didn't leave my room. I barely moved. Theo hadn't texted again, and I hadn't reached out either. Not because I didn't want to, but because something in me, some quiet, ancient instinct, told me not to. As if reaching out would shatter whatever thin line we were walking, and I'd find out things I wasn't ready to know. By early evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I threw on my sweatshirt and grabbed my bike. My heart pounded harder with every block I pedaled toward his house. The streets were quiet, too quiet for a Saturday in our neighborhood. Even the usual squeals of kids playing in their yards had vanished. When I reached Theo's place, I stopped short at the end of the driveway. The curtains were drawn. The porch light was off, even though the sun was already sinking low, casting long amber shadows across the sidewalk. The place looked abandoned. But Theo's window was cracked open just slightly, the one by the staircase. I hesitated. I should have just called him. Instead, I left my bike by the bushes and stepped up to the door, knocking once. then twice. No answer. But the door wasn't locked. Theo, I called, gently pushing it open. The house smelled different, stale and colder than it should have been. As if someone had just left, or never quite arrived. I stepped inside and instantly regretted it. The silence pressed against my ears. No footsteps. No sounds from the TV or kitchen. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator and the sharp scent of bleach. Bleach? That wasn't right. I found Theo in the kitchen. He was sitting on the floor, back against the cabinets, arms wrapped around his knees. He looked up as I stepped in, and something in his face was off. His eyes were red, not from crying, but like he hadn't slept. "I didn't think you'd come," he said quietly. "You didn't text," I said, keeping my voice low. "Is everything okay?" He shook his head, then stood up slowly as if his joints ached. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to ask 1,000 questions. But I didn't. Because then I heard it, footsteps, upstairs. Someone else was here. "Jace?" I asked. Theo flinched. "No," he said quickly. "He's out. He left a few hours ago. Work or something." He was lying. I don't know how I knew, but I did. It wasn't what he said, it was the way he said it. The way he avoided my eyes and shifted his weight from foot to foot. The way his fingers trembled ever so slightly. He picked up 2 mugs from the counter. "Tea," he offered. "I already made some." The kettle was still warm. I nodded, more out of habit than comfort. We sat at the kitchen table like we always had, but the air between us felt dense, like waterlogged wool. I sipped the tea and watched him carefully. "I found the journal," he finally said. He didn't have to explain. I knew what he meant. Last summer, Theo told me he'd kept a journal back when things were bad. Before his parents split. Before Jace moved back in. He said he wrote down things he couldn't say out loud. Things that scared him. Then he'd hidden it somewhere in the attic. Buried it like a curse. "What's in it?" I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Theo looked down at the table. "There are things I don't remember writing," he whispered. "Things I shouldn't remember, but they're there. In my handwriting. In detail." "Like what?" He didn't answer. Just stood up and motioned for me to follow. We crept up the stairs together. The hallway was darker than I remembered. Every door was shut, except Theo's. He stepped inside first, pulled the blinds halfway down, and then opened his closet. From a shoebox beneath his old-school clothes, he retrieved a faded red journal. He handed it to me, then sat on the edge of the bed, quiet and stiff. I opened it slowly. The first few pages were innocent enough. Lists of songs, random poems, and names of people he hated in middle school. But by page 17, the tone changed. I flipped to an entry dated 2 years ago. "He comes into my room when he's high. Says things I don't understand. Touches things he shouldn't. I pretend I'm asleep. Sometimes I think he knows I'm pretending." I froze. My throat tightened. Theo sat completely still, eyes fixed on the floor. He didn't cry. Didn't speak. There were more entries. Some barely legible, written in what looked like a shaking hand. "Last night he locked the door." I didn't scream. I couldn't. He said if I did, Mom would hate me. Said no one would believe me. I think I dissociated. I think I left my body. I closed the journal. Theo finally looked at me. "Why didn't you tell someone?" I asked, barely managing to keep my voice steady. He gave a hollow laugh. "Tell who? My mom's too drunk half the time to notice. My dad's across the country. And Jace is the golden boy. Everyone loves him." I sat next to him, heart pounding. "Why now?" I asked. "Why did you want me to come over?" He hesitated. "I think he knows I found it. Last night, after you left, he came into my room again." He lifted his hoodie sleeve, revealing bruises along his wrist. I fought back this time. I told him I'd expose everything. I said I had proof. He laughed. Said if I showed that journal to anyone, both of us would regret it. "Both of us?" My blood turned to ice. "I didn't tell him you saw it," Theo added quickly. "But he's paranoid. And angry." He gripped my hand tightly. "You're the only person I trust." Then, downstairs, the unmistakable sound of the front door unlocking. Theo's face drained of color. We stood frozen, listening. Heavy footsteps. A male voice, casual and sharp. You left the damn window open again. Theo moved quickly. He shoved the journal back into the box, pushed it into the closet, and closed the door. Then he pulled me toward the attic stairs at the end of the hall. We need to hide. He was shaking. I didn't argue. The attic was hot and dry, the air filled with dust and forgotten memories. We crouched behind a stack of old boxes, barely breathing. Below us, the creak of floorboards echoed with every step. Then came the voice. Jace. Thought I heard something up here, he said. His tone was calm. Too calm. Theo squeezed my hand so tightly it hurt. The attic steps creaked once. Twice. I held my breath. And then, silence. Had he left? We stayed still for what felt like hours. I could hear Theo's breath hitching, feel the weight of everything pressing down on us. My heart raced as the silence stretched, as sweat trickled down my back and the journal's words replayed in my mind. I whispered, "Do you think he knows we're here?" Theo didn't answer, but I could see it in his eyes. He did. The attic stayed silent. Not peaceful silence, but the kind that presses against your eardrums, waiting to break. Dust floated through shafts of amber light from the single cracked window. The floor beneath us groaned with age, and still, we didn't move. Theo's breathing was shallow, his grip clenched in mine like he was anchoring himself to the only real thing left. Then, one sound shattered everything. The attic door. Slowly, deliberately, footsteps followed. Not rushing. Just one after another. Measured. Theo's hand slipped from mine as he rose. "No," I mouthed, grabbing his sleeve. He shook his head. Gently. Sadly. "I have to face him," he whispered. "He'll never stop unless I do." And then, softer, more fragile, "I'm not a kid anymore." He stepped from behind the boxes. I followed. Jace stood at the top of the attic stairs, half in shadow, a faint smirk playing on his lips like this was all some game he was winning. Well, he drawled. "You two scared the hell out of me. Thought maybe rats finally took over up here." Theo didn't say anything. He stood with his arms crossed, jaw tight. Jace's smile widened. "You hiding something, little brother?" Theo's voice came out steadier than I expected. "I found the journal." The pause. Jace blinked. The smirk didn't leave, but something in his posture changed. He stiffened just slightly. Enough to notice. "Is that what this is about?" he said, chuckling. "Old scribbles from a messed up kid? Come on, Theo. We've all had nightmares." "You weren't a nightmare," Theo said. "You were real." That landed. Jace's smile vanished. "You've been reading it again, haven't you?" he asked, stepping closer. "Convincing yourself something happened that didn't." "You made it happen." My voice cracked as I said it. I didn't mean to speak, but the words tore out of me. Jace turned to me, and for the first time I saw his eyes. Not charming, not clever. Empty. Cruel. "Oh, you're in on this too?" he asked, amused again. "Let me guess. Playing the white knight for my poor, broken brother?" He stepped toward us. I backed up, but Theo stood firm. "No more games," Theo said. Something snapped then, maybe in Jace, maybe in the air between us. He lunged forward. Theo shoved me behind him. Jace grabbed Theo by the collar and slammed him into one of the attic beams. Boxes crashed. A jar shattered. I screamed his name, but he didn't answer. Jace's voice was low, almost a growl. "You think anyone's gonna believe you? You think dragging this through the mud helps anybody?" "I'm not protecting you anymore," Theo hissed. "Yeah." Jace snarled. "Then you'd better hope no one finds out everything." Something inside me surged. I grabbed a rusted metal rod from the floor, an old curtain rod, maybe, and swung. It struck Jace across the shoulder. He staggered back with a grunt, furious now. His eyes locked onto mine, dark and wild. "You stupid little..." Theo didn't hesitate. He lunged too, pushing Jace down hard. They crashed to the floor, a flurry of fists, curses, and tears. Jace was bigger, stronger, but Theo fought like he'd been waiting for this moment for years. Like this was the only fight that mattered. I dove for the journal. Pulled it from the closet. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages again, rereading every word. The details, the dates. I had proof. I pulled out my phone. Snapped photos. Every page. My heart hammered with each click. Below me, the struggle raged on. You don't get to win. Theo roared. Not this time. Jace shoved him off with a cry, scrambling to his feet. Blood streaked his lip. He turned to me, fury blazing. What the hell do you think you're doing? I held the phone up. This goes to the police. Tonight. His face darkened. And then, he smiled. Go ahead, he said, voice like ice. Just remember, it's your word against mine. And I'm the one who's clean. But his smile faltered when Theo laughed. A dry, broken sound. You're not clean. You're bleeding. You left bruises. And I'm not a scared kid anymore. We stared at each other in the stillness that followed. Then footsteps, again, but not Jace's. From downstairs. A voice. A woman's. Theo? Honey? You left the door open again. His mother. Jace's face drained. We all froze. Theo looked at me, then back at Jace. You're not going to touch me again, he said, voice like stone. And then he ran. Down the attic steps. I followed, nearly tripping in my panic. We collided with his mother at the foot of the stairs. She staggered back in surprise. Theo? What? Call the cops, he said breathlessly. Please. Just do it. She looked up and saw Jace at the top of the attic, face bloodied, shirt torn. Her lips parted. Something like understanding bloomed in her eyes, slow and horrified. Mom, Theo whispered, voice breaking. He hurt me. It was the first time I'd ever heard him say it out loud. And it shattered her. She reached for her phone with trembling hands. Jace didn't come down. He didn't need to. Because for the first time in his life, Jace was cornered. The living room was silent, lit only by the dim orange glow bleeding in from the street lamp outside. The police had come and gone. Jace left in the back of a squad car, head down, face unreadable. Theo hadn't spoken since. He sat curled up on the couch, blanket around his shoulders even though the summer night still clung to the air. His fingers trembled around a half-empty mug of cocoa his mom had made in a desperate, helpless gesture. She was upstairs now, probably crying. I sat on the floor next to him, knees pulled in, unsure of where I belonged. The room smelled like dust, cinnamon, and old secrets. His voice finally broke the silence. He always said no one would believe me. I didn't say anything. Just listened. He told me if I said anything, I'd destroy the family. Ruin Mom. Break everything. He looked down into the mug. I almost believed him. For years. The floor creaked beneath my shifting weight. You didn't destroy anything, Theo. You saved yourself. He gave a soft, humorless laugh. Saved? Doesn't feel like that. Feels like I opened a vein and let everything spill out. I moved closer without thinking. My shoulder brushed his. He didn't pull away. I'm sorry, I whispered. I should have done more. Sooner. He looked at me for a long moment. His eyes were puffy, red-rimmed, but open in a way I'd never seen before. Like the armor had cracked, finally, completely. You did enough, he said. You stayed. There was a quiet heaviness in those words that wrapped around my chest like a vice. I wanted to say something, anything, but every word caught in my throat. Theo looked down again. I always wondered if something was wrong with me. You're not broken, Theo. No, not that, he hesitated. I mean, when I used to lie awake thinking about things. About boys. About you, sometimes. I blinked. I used to think maybe what happened made me that way. His voice dropped, low and uncertain. Do you ever wonder if the things you feel mean something's off in you? The question wasn't really about me. Not entirely. But it landed like a confession. I swallowed hard. Yes, I said. Sometimes. He looked at me again. Closer now. More carefully. Do you still think that? I paused, then shook my head. No. Not anymore. The air between us thickened. Something fragile stirred there, something half-formed, trembling. He leaned closer. Not much. Just a tilt of his head. A shift of breath. Our foreheads nearly touched. I don't know what this is, he said, voice barely audible. I don't know what I want this to be. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely think. His breath was warm. His eyes were a storm I could fall into forever. You don't have to know, I murmured. Our hands brushed. His fingers curled instinctively, lacing with mine for just a second. Then he pulled away. I can't, he said, voice raw. Not yet. I know, I said. And I meant it. We sat there in silence, the distance between us humming with electricity and regret. Outside, a car passed. Somewhere upstairs, a floorboard creaked. A clock ticked on the mantel like a countdown we couldn't read. He let out a breath, almost a sigh. Will you stay the night? I nodded. Of course. He didn't say anything else. Just leaned his head against my shoulder, the blanket falling slightly, his skin cold against mine. And that's how we stayed. 2 boys. 2 ghosts. A storm of history between us. A flicker of something unspeakable growing in the wreckage. I didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time, I didn't need to. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds in fractured lines, striping the hardwood floor like prison bars. I hadn't really slept. Just drifted in and out, wrapped in that strange limbo between exhaustion and adrenaline. Theo was still curled up on the couch, his back to me. He hadn't moved all night, except once, to let go of my hand. I watched the dust drift through the golden beams. The house was too quiet, like it was holding its breath. Like it knew something inside it had changed forever. Footsteps echoed upstairs. His mother's, slow and deliberate. I heard the faint murmur of a phone call, the clink of a mug. Life trying to resume normalcy, but failing. Theo stirred. He sat up slowly, hair tangled, eyes unreadable. Hey, I said softly. He nodded, rubbing his face. Didn't mean to fall asleep on you. You didn't. I just didn't want to move. A beat passed. I dreamt he came back, Theo said suddenly, his voice too casual. That he was standing in the attic doorway, smiling. Like nothing had happened. I didn't know what to say. So I didn't. Theo stood up. His movements were stiff, like he didn't quite belong in his own skin. I should shower. I watched him walk to the hallway, then stop. He didn't turn around when he said it. I don't want you to feel obligated. Just because you know now. It stung more than it should have. I'm not, I said. I'm here because I want to be. He was quiet for a moment. Then, you sure? I'm sure. Another silence. This one lingered. He nodded once and disappeared upstairs. I sat there alone, the air thick with what wasn't said. Later that day, I packed up my things. Not because I wanted to leave, but because staying any longer might make the silence louder. Theo came back down just as I was sliding my hoodie into my bag. He didn't speak at first. Just leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. You're leaving? Just for now, I said. You need space. He didn't argue. I took a deep breath. Do you want to talk later? Or maybe tomorrow? I don't know, he admitted. And then, softer, I don't want to lose you. You won't. I might. We stood there, caught in the kind of silence where 1,000 things try to be said all at once, but none of them make it out. I'll wait, I said. As long as it takes. I walked past him toward the door. As my hand touched the knob, I heard him say something, barely louder than a whisper. Do you ever think about what it would have been like if none of this happened? I turned. I do, I said. But then I wonder if we'd have ever been honest with each other. He looked down. I don't know how to be that version of me yet. You don't have to be, I said. Just don't run. I opened the door. And just before it closed behind me, I heard him say, what if I already did? Then silence. And I was gone. It started like every other Thursday night. The rain had rolled in early, coating the windows of my apartment in beads of silver that caught the streetlight glow like broken stars. I was sitting at my desk, textbook open, headphones in, but not playing anything, pretending I was being productive. I wasn't. My phone buzzed once, then again. Theo. 1:03 am. Are you up? Can you come over? No explanation. No emojis. Just that. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering above the screen like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I didn't even think to ask why. I just grabbed my keys, pulled on my hoodie and left. Theo wasn't the type to ask for help, especially not in the middle of the night. Especially not since everything with his brother. I remember the last time I'd seen Eli, Theo's older brother. It was over a year ago, and I hadn't been invited. Just stumbled into their house to pick up Theo for a concert, and there Eli was, shirtless, smirking, leaning against the kitchen island like he belonged to it. Like he knew exactly what kind of thoughts he stirred up in me and didn't mind one bit. He always had that kind of power. And I hated him for it. Even now, walking up the narrow path to their house, I couldn't shake the feeling that Eli was somehow watching. Or worse, waiting. The porch light flickered as I rang the bell. Not in a creepy horror movie way, just in that old house, needs a new fuse kind of way. But still, it unsettled me. Theo answered in a hoodie and pajama pants, dark circles under his eyes, hair damp like he'd just showered, or maybe like he hadn't slept at all. "Thanks for coming," he said, stepping aside. I walked in. The place smelled like lemon cleaner and something else, like old ash. Maybe the fireplace? Or maybe something that hadn't been burned but should have been. "You okay?" I asked, my voice too soft in the quiet house. He hesitated. That pause was everything. "Can we just sit for a minute?" he said. And so we did. On the couch. Side by side. Not touching, but too close not to feel the heat of each other's legs. It reminded me of being 15 again, watching movies at his place while his brother hovered behind us in the kitchen, grabbing snacks, always shirtless, always glancing my way like he was waiting for me to mess up. I looked around now. Eli's old room was still upstairs, locked. I didn't have to ask. I knew it hadn't been touched since that night, the one no one talked about. Theo cleared his throat. "There's something I found. In the attic. The beat. I need you to see it." I blinked. "Now." He nodded. "Why me?" Theo didn't answer right away. His fingers fidgeted with the hem of his hoodie, like he was unraveling a thread that held something in. "Because you're the only one who won't lie to me," he finally said. "And you knew him." I didn't ask which him. Because I already knew. And in that moment, I felt the floor tilt under me, not physically, but something in my chest shifted. I didn't know what Theo had found, or why it mattered now, a year later. But I knew this, the past wasn't done with us yet. And neither was Eli.